is an amazing activity to pump some adrenaline into your body, but it could quickly turn into a scary tale when you're stuck on top of a mountain all alone, especially if you find out there's an unwelcome guest around you. My father adored skiing. As kids, he would take me and my sister Jocelyn every winter to where he was born. It was an amazing little village on top of a series of steep, rocky mountains. Among all the amazing activities we enjoyed there, not a single one could come close to skiing with him. He knew the mountains like the palm of his hand, and the love for this activity grew pretty fast inside me. Now, decades later, I still go to the same place every single winter. This time, I'm on my own. He passed away a few years ago, and so did my grandparents, leaving the area a bit gray and unanimated. However, I always love going there to bring back the memories with all that I love. During one of these trips, I found myself in a big problem. Too cocky and confident in my skills and knowledge of the area, I almost always ventured around alone, ignoring any warnings my family threw at me. However, I quickly found myself in a huge problem. Slipping on the icy mountain terrain, I fell aggressively, rolling for a few meters down the steep slope. I was surprisingly still alive, but found out that I hurt my right foot pretty bad. The sharp, pointy rocks in the mountain cut through my foot like butter, leaving me bleeding heavily and completely unable to use my right foot. Dragging myself for the next few hours, I finally reached a little cabin. Hoping to get some assistance, I knocked and yelled for help, but no one seemed to open the door. Desperate, I pushed the door open and prayed no one would stab me for going inside their property. Surprisingly, the entire house was entirely vacant, but as if my injury wasn't enough, I could hear a storm approaching. I definitely didn't want to die freezing cold and bleeding out, so I decided to stay the night there and move out when the storm comes down to get some help. Luckily, I had a first aid kit with me, so I cleaned my wound, wrapped it tightly, and managed to stop the bleeding. Tired and stuck inside, I had nothing else to do but take some rest and sleep a little. As soon as I started dozing off, I could hear a strange noise coming towards me. It sounded as if something was being dragged on the floor. Immediately opening my eyes and inspecting my surroundings, nothing strange was to be spotted. However, I would hear the same noise over and over again every time I was about to fall asleep. Eventually, I just blamed the storm that was going crazy outside at the time. Finding inner peace believing this, I was finally able to fall asleep. A while later, I woke up, my eyes fixated on the ceiling of the old, creaking cabin. Trying to move towards the window to inspect if the storm was over, I found out that I wasn't able to move an inch of my body. The only thing that I could control was my eyes, running them all around the cabin. It was a terrifying feeling, but I knew that this was nothing but sleep paralysis, something that I'm really used to. But something was different this time. The same noise from earlier came back, coming from my left. Moving my eyes quickly there, what I saw there petrified me. Thrown on the floor was a woman that looked more like a ghostly presence. Her grayish skin, wide eyeballs staring into the void, and tangled hair painted a terrifying picture. But that was just the beginning. As my eyes dropped to her lower half, a chill ran down my spine. Both legs were twisted, bones poking out. The sickening sound of her dragging herself toward me echoed through the air, each inch leaving a gruesome trail of blood behind. The room reeked of iron as her broken limbs scraped against the floor. The sight and sound combined created a horrifying symphony that I couldn't escape. I couldn't even yell. I was locked in my own body, unable to do anything at all. Inch by inch, the woman got closer to me. Her facial features somehow showed agony and ecstasy combined. As soon as she started slowly crawling on top of me, I regained control over my body, jumping from my spot. I found out that the woman disappeared. Was I hallucinating the entire time? I thought to myself as I slowly approached the door, opening it, leaving the little cabin behind me. However, I quickly realized everything I witnessed was true, as I saw the silhouette of the woman's body through the cabin's window as I departed. Last year, my long-awaited skiing trip with friends turned into a terrifying encounter that I'll remember until my last breath. We had spent the entire day skiing, enjoying the absolutely breathtaking landscape before us. Snowball fights, races, we've done it all, adoring the snowy environment, something we don't get to see frequently as we lived in a pretty arid region. However, as night fell down and the sun rays got faint, our vision was obscured, and we were unable to track our path back to the camp that we used to stay in. We kept walking around for hours. The weather was getting much colder, and vision became a very serious obstacle. But a glimpse of hope suddenly lit the pitch darkness of our night as we saw a remote little wooden cabin. The little windows of that cabin radiated very faint light, being our only guide towards the house. Arriving there, I knocked on the door 3 times. I could hear voices coming from inside the house, but no one responded. I was almost sure I heard a chair slide against the wooden floor of the cabin. I knocked again, anticipating a response this time. However, once again, we got nothing. I pressed my ear against the door, trying to decipher what was going on inside the cabin, and I was certain I heard very faint footsteps. They just sounded as if whoever was on the other side was trying to be stealthy. Suddenly, the door slammed open, hitting me directly on the face, throwing me on the ground. On the other side of the door, an old man stood with a double-barreled shotgun, aiming it at the 3 of us as he yelled words I didn't understand until later that night. "Did you come for me? You want your revenge, don't you? I'll put a hole in you once again." Terrified, we yelled and begged for mercy, letting the old man know that we lost our path to our camp. Our words gradually seemed to resonate with him as he lowered his shotgun, gesturing us to come inside as we hesitatingly walked behind the old man. "You picked the worst day of the year to get lost, young ones." Although terrifying, his tone didn't seem to carry any malicious intentions against us. As soon as I stepped my foot inside the cabin, I could see the rest of the family inside. An old lady, apparently the old man's wife, and their daughter both sat in a distant tiny table with a candle slowly dying in its center. The old lady hugged her daughter close to her chest, as if she was protecting her from something. Their fearful gaze trailed us as we neared them and sat down, and for the next hour, no one had the audacity to say a single word. My friends and I did nothing but exchange questioning gazes. We didn't say a word, but I felt that the 3 of us just wanted to leave the place as soon as possible. But suddenly, the old man's deep voice echoed again, breaking the nerve-wracking silence. You might wonder what an old man like me is doing with a shotgun in his hands, inside his own house. Well, I have a really interesting story for you, young ones. 10 years ago, on the exact same day, I went hunting pretty late at night. The winter of that year was extremely rough on us, and that pushed me to take extreme measures like this one. Armed with this very shotgun, I went outside to the forest, praying to the Lord I could get something to put on the table for my family, and few feet away, I saw something moving. I immediately took a lucky shot and landed it. Running towards what I hunted, I found out that I had made a huge mistake. Before my hands, there was a dying young male that I assumed was lost in the woods. Although I tried to help, it was too late for him. Scared and not knowing what to do, I buried him in the same spot, and now, every single year, on the exact same day of the incident, he comes looking for me around the woods, trying to get his vengeance. Although the story sounded like an unrealistic horror movie, It really shook me to the core and left me questioning both the factuality of the story and the sanity of this entire family. Were we even safe around them? I started thinking to myself. But then, amidst the creepy atmosphere the old man created with his tale, a faint knocking on the door echoed, making us all jump from our places. "That's him," the old man uttered as he took the lead, seeking refuge and safety behind his rusty shotgun. Standing behind the door, he yelled, "Is that you? Did you come for me? I'm here. I dare you to come in." But then, suddenly, I could spot a figure behind the cabin's tiny window. A very pale man stood outside of the cabin, his eyes wide, portraying mixed emotions of agony and rage as he looked directly towards the old man. "The window," I yelled, and the old man immediately turned and pulled the trigger twice, but the man was simply not there anymore. Making sure there was no one outside, we opened the door, investigating the surroundings of the little wooden cabin. What we found scared the soul out of my body. "It's you" was painted on the outside of the cabin, clearly with blood. It was only a few hours for the sun to rise again, and we left that little family, carrying with us a tale we would never forget. The first week of 2023 was supposed to be special. My wife and I decided to book a cabin getaway for the entire week of January 1st in northern Minnesota. For the first few days, it was a cozy, relaxing, and fun-filled vacation. We spent hours skiing by the nearby slope, sledding down the hill outside our cabin, and lounging by the fireplace, slipping whiskey and hot cocoa. Things took an unfortunate turn when the forecast called for a heavy snowstorm. We weren't initially alarmed. We had chosen an area that gets heavy snowfall for the adventure and didn't mind having a day or two where we stayed inside. We've now been stuck inside this cabin for more than 2 weeks. Our food supply has dwindled to nearly nothing. The cabin grows colder each day, and we're almost out of wood. The cabin shakes violently every night around dinner time. Amid the shaking comes a low growl and an occasional shriek. Until yesterday, we thought it was the wind. Well, the wind is blowing all right, but there's something else. Something large and solid. Something with teeth. I'm hardly ever bold enough to pull back the curtains to see if the storm has subsided at all, but whenever I do, the first things I see are those several rows of dagger-like teeth and a pair of huge yellow eyes glowing through the thick billowing snow and staring right at us. Sometimes, as if to mock us, it moves away from the window, its giant gray, dirt-covered body stomping away on its feet the size of snow skis, all the while roaring and shrieking in sick delight, only to return moments later to crouch down and leer at us some more. We want to get out of this cabin and go home, but right now we're too afraid for our lives to do so. We have no way of fighting off the monster in the storm. The blizzard, and the thing in the blizzard, can't surround this cabin forever. But how long will we be stuck here?